so I'm gonna swap out there while we're getting Dillon up here. Yep, come on up.
Careful not to show all the slides ahead like that. No, they're forward.
There we go. Okay, hold on. Just screen share real quick. Okay, that should go away. And then, yeah, once I click in here, yep, forward, backwards. All right, just try to get as close to the mic as you can. And anytime you're ready, go for it.
And I can take this out of it.
Yeah, you can pull it out.
Howdy. I'm Dillon. I'm a philosophy, law, and ethics major, and I'm also part of the early entry program. So I'm also a first year at the law school across the street. And I'm about to tell you about the ethics and economics of a fire flower. All right. So you're probably wondering why, but let's talk a little bit about its history. All right. So one of the most popular power-ups to a video game character who need no introduction. Its first appearance was in 1985, Super Mario Bros. For the NES, and 2023 for Super Mario Wonder on the Nintendo Switch. Its appearance varies a lot, but this thing's in the way, you can't see, but its appearance varies a lot, but it's consistently, and its modern interpretation is that of a red and white cartoon flower with a pair of eyes. But before we can talk about what its ethics is, we must first talk about what... Yeah, it's like that. We must now talk about... This is a practice in intellectual play, right? It's not so much a research paper as much as it is a hypothetical. Now, let's imagine if these things were real. Okay, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves, and it's blocked again. Okay, so let's first talk about what fire is exactly. You see, when you think of fire, not actually thinking of fire, you're thinking of the flame. The fire is a chemical reaction that consists of... Oh, come on, where's it? Heat, fuel, and oxygen. When you have these three things together, you get, well, fire is a chemical reaction, essentially. Now, okay, the slides are messed up. So let's talk about what they do exactly, now that we know what fire is. All right, so anyone who, the most notable power is that when you touch it, you acquire the power to shoot fireballs the size of your fist from your hand, like a baseball. They bounce across the ground until they hit a dead end, until something blocks it. Now, when you... Yeah, they bounce across the ground. The user's clothes, this is a less noted feature, but as you can see here, when he touches it, the colors of your clothing will magically and instantly change to primarily white in color. And lastly, they can burn underwater. Yeah, okay, the slides are... This thing was really meant to be slide heavy. Okay, but however, the last most important thing is that well, not the most important, among other important things, is that if you get hurt, injured while you have this fire power, you are actually only going to lose the power, but it's otherwise fine from injury. So if you were to get smacked in the head by a brick with this power up, you'd be fine. No injury, but you lose the power though. So these are the features of what the fire flower does, right? So there is another factor to keep in mind, is that these things are functionally weeds. If they can grow anywhere, anywhere. They can grow in the jungle, they can grow in the desert, they can grow in the mountains, they can grow in the snow, and if they can grow in all these places, they can grow in your backyard. These things are weeds. You do not need to tend to them, and they're just about everywhere. But now we talked about the applications of this power. Well, with the implications of this power, there is another important thing to note here, and it's that it's basically not even fire, whatever it is, because if it can burn, the reason that water puts out fire is because it suffocates the oxygen and cools the heat. The fact that it can burn underwater means it probably doesn't need heat, and it definitely doesn't need oxygen. And the fact that it can bounce across the ground like a ball means it's a self-sustaining ball of fire. There's nothing in there. This doesn't make sense. So it doesn't need fuel either. So can you even call it fire? Well, that's what everyone calls it, so it has to be, right? So essentially this question is boiled down to the implications of magic, right? So these things defy the laws of physics for the reason I already just answered, but right off the bat, we have infinite energy, infinite fire, infinite energy. It burns nothing, and it keeps burning until it hits something infinite energy post-scarcity. Congratulations. We also have, obviously, there's military advancements. There's going to be a breakdown in global politics because any country that has this power is going to rule the world, basically. And of course, property rights are going to be broken down and reshaped. Every political ideology is going to have to keep this in mind, whether they want to or not. So now that those are the obvious implications in the way, but going deeper into the military application specifically is that these things can be easily mass produced because, like I said, they're a weed. 3 minutes. They are both the fact that you can be injured and not. These things are basically infinite bulletproof vests. Just take dozens of them, tape them to your body, and then you get shot. You get one. You get shot. You get another one. You get shot. It's like this will basically create a new stage of warfare. Mass production of steam bombs and underwater naval combat will be completely revolutionized. It's like World War I all over again. But now we're going to talk about public versus private good. You see, the fact that these things grow everywhere, right? The government is going to try and control it, but they're going to fail because of just how abundant they are, which means it's going to be the inverse of a public good, because usually a pseudo-public good is when a government tries to make a private good more accessible to everyone, like education, which is usually a private good, but with public schools is now a pseudo-public good. But the problem is that this thing is backwards. It's a pseudo-public good, but they don't want it to be a pseudo-public good, which is a nearly unique feature of something like this. A private good is, well, more essentially like private property. It is, you have it, only you can get it. But a public good is where if you give it to one, you give it to all, like air. But let's talk about the impact of clothes for a sec. Everyone is concealed carrying now who wears white clothing. The fashion industry is going to be upended. And then there's the long-term cultural impact of this thing. Like, think of the Pope's white clothing or wedding dresses. Those are the ones I could think off the top of my head. But the fact that anyone can wear white clothing is basically concealed carrying. So this will create a long-term cultural impact that I do not have time to talk about. So let's talk about insurance now, because it just keeps going and going. You see, insurance companies, they reward you for taking precautions against whatever it is that you're trying to keep up, that you're trying to protect yourself from. But the fact that so they're not going to cover fire damages unless whatever it is the building is not flammable, because no amount of water sprinklers or fire extinguishers are really going to stop this thing. So yeah, insurance, worse than it already is. Next. Okay, so you're probably Dillon, you're probably thinking, Dillon, what is the point? What is the point? And I said, you really just spent 8 minutes talking about a video game power-up after a bunch of, in front of a bunch of academics, and I said yes. But you see, there is a point. You see, the point of my presentation is to illustrate that there is a underlying idea in modern politics that they always seem to forget that the purpose of politics, right, is to distinguish who gets what, whether it's power, money, all of it, really. But all of that is backed by the fact that the resources that we have available to us, the clothes we wear, the food we eat, the jobs we go to every day, the cars we drive, what else did I put in there? Our hobbies, the buildings we live in, the buildings we work in, everything, literally everything is going to be backed by the resources that we interact with. And I just chose fire flowers to introduce how this new magic resource could basically change our lives whether we want to or not, because every resource will change our lives whether we want to or not. And let's see, that's it, the end.
All right. As someone who just opened all the slides but didn't look at them all, that is not what I thought that was going to be. So I love that.
Oh, what'd you think it was going to be?
Don't know. But I thought the fire flower was like, I thought it was like a fate, not going to be the whole subject of the whole thing. So I don't think I've ever seen a philosophical thought experiment as one of these presentations either before. So what a variety today. Questions? All right, Heinz in the back.
Yes, a question.
Testing. All right. What Mario item in general do you think would change the world the most?
Well, all of them would, but the fire flower is the most.
Fire flower?
Well,
yeah.
Well, fire flower.
What an interesting question. Wolf.
Tiny mushroom. That also has to be one.
So yes, very interesting presentation. However, I would argue if it is available everywhere, as it is a weed, there will be no government that will be controlling it. So you would not have the military advantage of anybody.
Right. You see, there is another layer to this that I tried to really speed up. You see, there are two ways you could look at the whole availability thing. Given that it's not real, there are two ways you could look at its availability. Either it grows in this one particular area, or it grows everywhere like a weed, like how I put forth. If it grows in one particular area, every country is going to want to take it for themselves because that one country that does have it is going to have a monopoly on this power, and it's going to be theirs to control. If it's going to be everywhere, then we have a more chaotic, the Earth's on fire type of thing. Yeah, you're right that the government's going to try and fail with the military advancements, but I would argue that that would actually only make it faster because now it's going to be like an arms race, but like on steroids. Because now, if I don't get infinite energy first, then I'm going to be blasted by the fire of 1,000 suns.
All right, and Dr. Spencer with the last question.
I really don't play any video games. No, but it seems to me that there must be some sort of analogies to AI in this world domination and the race, to full power. I know there's a lot of privatization in AI, but once it's out, which it seems to be, the genie's out of the bottle, you've reached the weed level of uses of AI. So
I'm actually glad you asked me that.
Because
before I actually made the slides, I actually talked to a friend of mine who actually works, he's actually studying AI and engineering. And I told him, okay, so what are the so if we have infinite energy, and one of the biggest setbacks with AI is the fact that it takes up a lot of energy. But now that we have infinite energy, one of those is just gone. But we still have a limitation on data, which is like there's only so much you can train an AI on. It's like if you could be strong enough to lift the universe, but you only have like 3-pound dumbbells, so you can never actually get to that point where you actually get there. And you are also correct that this thing is analogous to an AI in a lot of ways, except that no one really builds it. So there is no question of you can't say no to this. Like, even if, like, one of the biggest criticisms of these AI developers is that, can we just not? Haven't you seen the movies? I'm sure this thing will kill us all. But given that this thing is a plant, a weed, there is no question here. This is a forced into this situation no matter what kind of thing. So that's a big difference I wanted to put there.
Thank you. I'm glad. Actually, the screenplay that was one of the winners last year was an AI has bad implications screenplay. So